The first time I received the report card that should have saved my life, I ran through the school corridor waving it like a flag. That was my mistake. I was 16, stupid with relief, and so desperate for one adult to say I had earned something honestly that I forgot St. Aurelia Academy never rewarded girls like me without charging interest. My marks were impossible, everyone said. Not because they were fake, but because I was supposed to be a quiet scholarship student who tried hard, not the girl who beat the school's top tutor in mathematics, chemistry, English, economics, and ranking points all at once. My report card had 5 perfect scores, 2 subject prizes, and a confidential academic note at the bottom saying I had been recommended for the Founders Medal, the award that came with a university pathway, a summer research placement, and enough prestige to change the future of any girl whose family did not already own one. I showed it to the wrong person first. Elise Caro, the school's top tutor, student mentor, academic captain, and unofficial queen of every exam room, took my report card in both hands and smiled like she was proud of me. By lunchtime, the school system had been corrected. By afternoon, my marks were under review. By assembly the next morning, Elise was standing on stage with tears in her eyes, saying she had discovered irregularities in the tutoring records and feared I had accessed her private study materials. My report card vanished. The printed copy disappeared from my bag. The digital version updated. Teachers who had praised me suddenly used words like anomaly, pressure, misconduct, and overreach. Elise remained the top tutor. I became the scholarship girl who cheated with stolen tutoring keys. I spent years trying to prove a report card had once existed with my name clean on it, but a vanished paper is just a ghost with no witness. I died at 23 in a room with peeling paint, still dreaming of that cream envelope stamped with the Academy seal. Then I woke up on the same Thursday morning, in the same homeroom, while Miss Harlow walked down the rows handing out sealed report cards. When she placed mine on my desk, my hands knew its weight before my mind could breathe. Elise turned around from the front row, smiling. "Mara," she whispered, "open it. I want to see how you did." This time, I slid the envelope under my blazer, looked her in the eye, and said, "Not here." The whole day changed because of those 2 words. In my first life, I had opened the envelope immediately. My heart had pounded so hard I could barely tear the seal, and when I saw the perfect marks, I gasped aloud. Elise heard. Of course she heard. Everyone heard because joy is loud when it has been starved. She came over, hugged me, asked to see it, and I gave it to her because Elise Caro was the reason half the school passed anything. She ran the free peer tutoring program, built revision timetables for stressed juniors, stayed late in the library with girls who cried over calculus, and posted motivational quotes in the year group chat with little gold stars. Teachers called her generous. Parents called her gifted. Students called her Saint Elise, half joking and half not. I called her my friend, which was worse. She tutored me in year 9 when I nearly lost my scholarship after my father's illness emptied our savings and my homework started coming in late. She told me I was brilliant but unstructured. She gave me color-coded study grids, sat beside me after school, and taught me how to speak to teachers without apologizing first. I loved her for that. I loved her enough to ignore the way her smile tightened when I began scoring higher than her. I loved her enough to think her little comments were concern. "Mara, don't push too hard. People might question sudden improvement." Or, "You should let me review your work before you submit it, just so no one misunderstands." In my first life, I mistook control for care until care turned into a cage. Now, with the unopened report card pressed against my ribs, I watched her face as she processed my refusal. Her smile stayed, but her eyes paused. Not hurt, calculating. "Why not here?" she asked lightly. Around us, students were tearing envelopes, laughing, groaning, comparing ranks, already surrendering their futures to public noise. I shrugged. "I don't want people touching it." A girl behind me snorted. "Paranoid much?" Elise laughed softly, but her fingers tapped the edge of my desk twice. "Top, top." The same rhythm she used when organizing other people's lives. "Report cards aren't secrets, Mara." I smiled. "Mine is." Miss Harlow called the room to attention before Elise could press harder. Students, remember that report cards are private documents. You may discuss them with your families and teachers, but no one is required to share. It was such an ordinary teacher sentence that it nearly made me dizzy. In my first life, I never heard it because I was too busy crying over my marks and letting Elise photograph them for memory. This time, the sentence became a shield. Elise turned forward slowly. I saw her hand move to her phone under the desk. By instinct, I checked mine. A message arrived from her 3 seconds later. You're acting weird. Did something happen? I did not reply. Another message. If your marks are bad, I can help you fix the narrative before scholarship review. Then another. Mara, don't shut me out. That was Elise's genius. She never asked for access as curiosity. She framed it as rescue. If your marks are bad, fix the narrative. Don't shut me out. In the first life, she needed to see the report card because it proved I had passed her. Maybe she expected I had done well, but not that well. Maybe she planned to soften my ranking quietly before assembly. Maybe she had already built a system where top marks passed through her tutoring records before reaching teachers. I did not yet know. I only knew the report card was dangerous in her hands. So I did what the dead version of me begged for across time. I kept it hidden until I could make copies. At recess, I did not go to the courtyard. I went to the library. Mrs. Vale, the librarian, was at the front desk sorting returned books into piles that looked random but were probably part of a system known only to her and God. In my first life, I came to her months after everything collapsed, asking if the library printer kept scan logs from report card day. She said yes for 30 days. I had arrived on day 46. I never forgot the look on her face when she realized she could almost have helped me. Today, I walked straight to her desk and whispered, I need to scan something private, save a copy with a timestamp, and print 3 copies. I also need an adult witness that the document existed before lunch. Mrs. Vale looked up slowly. Librarians do not shock easily. They have seen boys photocopy fake medical notes and girls cry into scholarship applications. But something in my voice made her remove her glasses. Are you in danger? She asked. I thought about Elise's soft smile, the vanished file, the assembly, the years of proving a ghost. Academically, I said. Mrs. Vale stood. That counts. She led me to the archive scanner in the back office, the one students were not supposed to use because it's saved directly to the library server with metadata. I opened my blazer and took out the sealed envelope. My hands shook when I broke the seal. The report card slid out, cream paper, embossed crest, my name at the top. Mara Ellison. I forced myself to look. Mathematics, 100. Chemistry, 100. English, 100. Economics, 100. History, 99. Academic rank, 1. Founder's Medal recommendation, pending assembly confirmation. My throat closed so hard I nearly bent over. It was real. Again. Still real. Mrs. Vale read it over my shoulder and whispered, Good heavens. I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because in my first life those marks had been treated like evidence of a crime. Mrs. Vale scanned both sides, printed 3 copies, signed the bottom of each with the time, and then, without asking, sealed one in a library archive envelope. One stays here, she said. Not because I distrust you, because I distrust everyone else. By second period, Elise knew something had escaped her reach. I could feel it in the way she watched me during chemistry, not directly, but through reflections in the fume hood glass. The practical lesson was supposed to be revision for final moderation, but nobody could focus because report card day turns even smart students feral. Elise moved between benches congratulating girls, comforting them, offering to check whether ranking anomalies might be appealed. That phrase hit my ear like a slap.
Ranking anomalies.
In my first life, after my report card vanished, the school claimed my marks were a ranking anomaly produced by incorrect tutoring bonus points. Tutoring bonus points were small academic credits awarded for peer mentoring, revision leadership, and improvement support. Elise controlled the peer tutoring attendance logs. The system credited tutors for hours, students for participation, and academic captains for oversight. I had never paid attention because bonus points were tiny, or I thought they were. But a tiny lever in the right machine can shift a bridge. During chemistry, Elise leaned over Leah Martin's bench and said, "Don't panic about the B in physics. I'll check if your tutoring attendance uploaded properly." Leah thanked her like Elise had offered oxygen. My stomach tightened. Attendance uploaded. Bonus points. Report corrections. Elise was not just tutoring. She was sitting at the crossroads between struggling students, academic data, teacher trust, and final rankings. In my first life, she did not need to fake my entire report card. She only needed to make the school believe the original marks had been produced by improper access to her tutoring records. A perfect student does not cheat, they thought. A scholarship girl with sudden perfect marks and a connection to the tutoring database? Suspicious. This time, I wrote down every phrase Elise used.
Ranking anomalies. Attenden upolat. Fix narrative.
Check records. Words are footprints if you stop treating them like weather. At lunch, Elise cornered me outside the music rooms. She did not bring friends. That told me she was worried, not performing yet. The corridor smelled faintly of floor polish and old brass instruments. Rain tapped against the windows. She stood in front of me with her arms folded, navy blazer perfect, hair tied with a gold ribbon because report card day was an unofficial coronation for girls like her. "Mara," she said, "show me the report." "No." Her expression tightened. "I'm your tutor." "Not anymore." That struck deeper than I expected. For half a second, she looked genuinely hurt, and that almost undid me. The problem with betrayal by someone who once helped you is that memory keeps submitting evidence for the defense. "You can't just decide that," she said. "Yes, I can. I've supported your academic record for years." "That's exactly why I'm checking it." Her eyes sharpened. "Checking what?" I let the silence sit. In my first life, I always filled silence because Elise had trained me to think pauses were disrespectful. This time, I watched her fill it herself. "If you've been listening to people saying I adjust logs unfairly, they're jealous," she said quickly. I had not mentioned logs. She realized it too late. I felt the whole corridor narrow around that slip. "Who said anything about logs?" I asked. She recovered fast. "Everyone knows people gossip about the tutoring program." "Do they?" "Mara, don't do this." Her voice softened. There it was. The rescue voice. "Your report must be good if you're hiding it. I'm happy for you. I really am. But if you suddenly outrank students whose families watch these things closely, people will ask questions. Let me help before they do." In my first life, that sentence would have sounded protective. In this one, it sounded like a threat wearing gloves. "Let them ask," I said. I kept copies. Her face went still. Not confused. Still. "There is a difference. Copies. With timestamps." She took one step back. "Why would you do that?" I leaned closer, just enough for her to hear every word. "Because paper disappears around you." That afternoon, the first attack arrived, and it was almost nostalgic. An anonymous message appeared in the year group chat at 2:17 p.m. Some people should remember tutoring records are traceable before bragging about impossible marks. No name.
No accusation.
Just enough poison to make everyone thirsty. A second message followed from a new account. Founders' medal should go to real mentors, not girls who steal from them. In my first life, I replied immediately, shaking with rage, demanding proof, which turned the rumor into a fight and the fight into evidence of stress. This time, I screenshotted both messages and said nothing. Then I emailed the screenshots to Mrs. Vale and my mother with a subject line, "Save, before assembly." My mother replied from work during her 10-minute break, "Do I need to come to school?" I stared at her message until my eyes burned. In the first life, I hid the early rumors from her because I was ashamed and because Elise kept telling me we could handle it internally. By the time my mother arrived, the school had already framed the story for her. Today, I typed, "Maybe tomorrow."
"Bring the folder if I ask."
She replied, "I am already angry." Good. Anger, when pointed correctly, is a family heirloom worth keeping. The assembly announcement came at the end of the day. Founders Medal nominees would be recognized the next morning before the whole senior school. In my first life, my name was removed overnight. Elise's name was announced instead, along with a speech praising her tutoring service and academic leadership. I sat in the third row with a disciplinary meeting scheduled for lunch. I still remember the applause, not because it was loud, but because it went on long enough for me to understand that the room had moved into a future without me. This time, as Miss Harlow read the announcement, Elise turned around slowly and looked at me. She smiled. Not her tutor's smile. Not her friend's smile. A small, private smile that said she still believed the room belonged to her. That was when I realized she had not lost confidence after hearing about the copies. She had simply changed targets. If my report card could not vanish, she would make it look contaminated. A real document can become a dirty document if the story around it spoils first. I needed to find the source of the contamination before assembly, not after. Before. The answer, I suspected, lived in the tutoring office. The tutoring office was not really an office. It was a glass-walled room beside the library with 3 desks, a printer, a cabinet of revision booklets, and a computer reserved for academic captains to manage peer support schedules. Elise had practically lived there since year 10. Her handwriting labeled the folders. Her sticky notes covered the monitor. Her gold star stickers marked attendance sheets. In my first life, I avoided that room after the accusation because seeing it made me sick. In this life, I entered at 4:05 after most students left and before the cleaners arrived. I did not sneak. Sneaking makes innocent people look edited. I walked in with Mrs. Vale beside me because librarians, when properly motivated, can become scarier than lawyers. I need to check whether my tutoring attendance record is accurate, I said, since anonymous messages are referencing traceable records. Mrs. Vale unlocked the cabinet with a key she absolutely should not have had but obviously did. The system is read-only for students, she said. Academic captains can upload attendance, but not alter marks. Can they attach notes? Yes. There it was.
Notes.
We opened the tutoring terminal under Mrs. Vale's staff view. My student record showed years of attendance, tutor sessions, peer mentoring credits, and a new flag added at 1:54 p.m. that day. Review. Possible material access conflict. Attached by East Caro. Note. Student has received extensive unsupervised exam strategy support from academic captain. Recommend review before founder's medal confirmation to avoid perception of unfair advantage. I read it once.
Twice.
My hands went cold. Not cheating. Not theft. Something softer, smarter. Perception of unfair advantage. Elise had made my achievement look dependent on her help. If I won, it was because of her. If my marks were questioned, it was because of me. Either way, she remained central. Mrs. Vale printed the note without speaking. Then she clicked the attachment history. There were more. Dozens, maybe hundreds, across different students. Some harmless. Attendance correction, missed session, exam anxiety. Others were knives. Leah Martin. Struggles without structured oversight. Recommend against independent accelerated physics. Daniel Cho. High performance after private tutoring by EC. Improvement may reflect mentor input. Priya Shah. Emotionally volatile after poor result. Do not assign peer support role. My name appeared 6 times over 3 years, each note gently framing my progress as a product of Elise's intervention. Year 9. Mara responds well to close guidance, lacks independent structure. Year 10. Strong improvement under my study method, but confidence exceeds consistency. Year 11. Monitor ambition may overextend if praised too quickly. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Elise had not only prepared to steal my report card. She had been writing the story of my dependence for years. Every time I thought she was helping me, she left a note saying I could not stand without her. Mrs. Vale looked furious in the quiet way only adults who love records can be furious. These should never have been used for academic decisions without review. Were they? I asked. She did not answer. She did not need to. I photographed everything. We exported the log. We printed the attachment history. Then Mrs. Vale sealed another envelope. Assembly is tomorrow? Yes. Then we wake the principal tonight. Principal Varick answered emails at 5:23 p.m., which was either dedication or a tragic personal life. Mrs. Vale requested an urgent meeting with me, my mother, Miss Harlow, and the academic dean. By 6:10, we were in a conference room that smelled like carpet cleaner and institutional anxiety. My mother arrived still wearing her supermarket uniform, hair pinned badly, eyes already sharp enough to cut through glass. She took the seat beside me and placed one hand flat on the folder without opening it. Before anyone speaks, she said, my daughter's report card exists. We have copies. Principal Varick looked startled. Mrs. Ellison, no one suggested otherwise. My mother smiled without warmth. Not yet. I loved her so much in that moment, I almost cried. Mrs. Vale presented the scanned report card first, then the library timestamp, then Elise's conflict note, then the history of dependency framing. Miss Harlow's face went pale as she read the year 10 note. I never saw these. The academic dean, Mr. Orson, looked uncomfortable. Academic captain notes are used as informal context during support reviews, not formal grading. Informal context can still poison formal decisions, Mrs. Vale said. Principal Varick read Elise's new note again. Possible material access conflict, she murmured. Was Mara given private exam materials? No, I said. Elise gave me study timetables, past paper schedules, and advice. She gives half the school. But if I win, she wants the school to believe my marks belong to her tutoring program. If I'm challenged, she wants the school to believe I gained unfair advantage from her. Mr. Orson frowned. That's a serious interpretation. My mother leaned forward. It is also the polite version. They did not fully believe me yet. I could see it. Not because they thought I was lying, but because Elise had spent 4 years making belief in her feel like school spirit. She was in newsletters, assemblies, tutor rosters, award photos, charity drives. She had built a reputation so wide that any accusation against her had to cross a bridge made of adult pride. Adults hate admitting a child fooled them, especially when they praise the child publicly. Principal Varick finally said, we will postpone the founder's medal announcement until we review the notes. That sounded reasonable.
It was also exactly wrong.
No, I said. Everyone looked at me. My mother's hand tightened on the folder. If you postpone without explanation, Elise will control the story by morning. The anonymous messages already started. She'll say there was a review because of me. Mr. Orson folded his arms. What do you suggest? My voice shook, but I did not let it shrink. Hold assembly. Announce the nominees based on verified report cards. Then address the tutoring program review separately with staff witnesses. Principal Varick's eyebrows rose. You want to be announced? I want the report card to exist publicly before anyone buries it under context. Silence. Mrs. Vale nodded once. My mother smiled a little. Principal Varick studied me for a long moment, then said, and if Elise reacts, then let her speak, I said. She usually does when the room stops following her plan. Elise found me before first bell the next morning. Not in the hallway, not by my locker, not somewhere dramatic. She was waiting outside the chapel where assemblies lined up, holding a folder against her chest, and wearing her academic captain badge polished so brightly it caught the light. She looked tired for the first time. Not messy. Elise never allowed messy. But there were shadows under her eyes, and her smile had a crack through it. Mara, she said, we need to fix this before assembly. The words sent a strange calm through me. In my first life, I was the one begging before assembly. Please tell them the report existed. Please tell them you saw it. Please tell them you took the photo. Elise had hugged me and whispered, I wish I could help, but if I lie for you, we both fall. Now she was the one waiting with fear hidden under polish. Fix what? I asked. Her eyes flicked around. Students were gathering near the chapel doors. Teachers moved in and out. Too public for threats, not private enough for masks to fully drop. I know you went into the tutoring records. With Mrs. Vale. Her mouth tightened. You don't understand what those notes are. Explain. She swallowed. They're support notes. Context. I write them for everyone. It's how I help teachers know who needs what. You wrote that my confidence exceeds consistency. It did then. You wrote that I lacked independent structure. You did before I helped you. You wrote a possible material access conflict yesterday before anyone asked. Because I was scared for you. I almost laughed. You were scared for me? Yes. Her voice broke. A few nearby students glanced over. She lowered it quickly. If your marks are that high, people will question them. I was trying to make sure the school understood I tutored you, so it didn't look like cheating. You made it look like cheating with a witness. Her eyes flashed. There she was. Not the tutor. Not the saint. The owner of the ladder, angry that someone climbed past her. Do you know how many hours I spent on you? She whispered. Do you know what your success looks like without my name attached? It looks impossible. The sentence landed between us like a confession too honest to survive daylight. I took one step back. Then come say that at assembly. Her face strained. Mara, please. The word please came out raw, and for a second I saw a different Elise. Not kind, not innocent, but frightened. Frightened of losing a crown she had convinced herself was earned because she had polished it for so long. Please don't speak at assembly. There it was. The title of the second life, though I did not know it then. The school's top tutor, who once stood under the lights and let me become a cautionary tale, was begging me not to speak before the same room. Why? I asked. Because people won't understand. Understand what? Her hands tightened around the folder until the corners bent. That I helped you. That I helped everyone. That the tutoring program only works because I know who needs pressure, who needs praise, who needs teachers warned before they make mistakes with students. I shaped half this grade. No, I said quietly. You label half this grade so teachers would see them through you. That's not fair. Neither was stealing my independence one note at a time. She looked as if I had slapped her. Then the chapel doors opened, and Miss Harlow called us inside. Elise grabbed my sleeve. Not hard. Desperate. If you speak, they'll review everything. Not just you. Everyone. People will hate you. I looked at her hand on my sleeve. In my first life, I would have mistaken that grip for connection. This time, I removed it gently. Then they can check their notes too. Assembly smelled like polished wood, perfume, and wet wool from the morning rain. Rows of students filled the chapel, blazers dark against the pale stone walls. Teachers sat along the side. The projector screen glowed blue, behind the lectern. Founders' medal assemblies were usually predictable. Speeches about excellence, applause for students everyone already expected to win, photos for the newsletter. But that morning, the air felt strange. Whispers followed me as I walked to my seat. Anonymous messages had done their work overnight. Some students stared like I was a scandal waiting to be explained. Others avoided looking at Elise. Maybe rumors had reached them too. Elise sat in the front row with the academic leaders, her back straight, badge shining. Principal Varick stood at the lectern and began with the usual language: dedication, integrity, academic growth, service to community. My body remembered the first life so vividly, I almost felt the old humiliation rising before it happened. Elise on stage. My name absent. Applause burying me. I pressed my fingers into my palm and breathed.
Not this time.
Principal Varick lifted the cream envelope containing the verified nominee list. This year's Founders Medal process has included additional verification of academic records, she said. The chapel quieted. Elise's shoulders stiffened. We will recognize the nominees first, then address a matter concerning academic support records. A murmur moved through the room. She read 3 names.
Danny and Jaw.
Priya Shah. Then mine. Mara Ellison. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then Miss Harlow began clapping, sharply, deliberately. Mrs. Vale followed from the staff row. My mother, seated near the back because Principal Varick had invited her, clapped so loudly students turned. The applause grew. Not thunderous, not easy, but real enough to stand on. I stood, walked to the front, and received the certificate that proved my report card existed. Elise did not clap. That mattered less than it once would have. Principal Varick asked the nominees to remain near the front. Then she turned back to the room. Before final confirmation, the school will conduct a formal review of the peer tutoring record system. It has come to our attention that student support notes may have been used beyond their appropriate purpose. The chapel buzzed. Elise stood abruptly. Principal Varick. Every head turned. There it was. The reaction. Varick looked at her calmly. Elise, please sit. Elise did not. Her voice trembled, but it carried. As academic captain, I need to clarify that the tutoring notes were created to help students. If there are misunderstandings, I should be allowed to explain before people assume misconduct. She looked toward me. Not fully. Just enough. A practiced move. Make herself the responsible leader. Make me the source of misunderstanding. In my first life, this was where I was never allowed to speak. This time, Principal Varick said, Mara, since your record prompted the review, do you wish to make a brief statement? The chapel turned into one giant held breath. Elise's face changed.
Not visibly, to most. But I saw it.
The panic from outside the chapel returned. Please don't speak at assembly. My legs felt weak, but I stepped to the second microphone. I could have destroyed her with anger. I wanted to. Some part of me wanted to describe the first life, the vanished report card, the accusation, the years of rejection, the final room where my hands forgot how to hold a pen. Instead, I held up the copy Mrs. Vale signed. This is my report card, I said. My voice echoed strangely through the chapel speakers. Yesterday morning, I received it sealed. Before showing it to any student, I scanned it in the library with an adult witness. The screen behind me changed. Mrs. Vale had prepared the slide, timestamp scan, my marks, founder's medal note. A wave of whispers moved through the rows. I continued. I did that because anonymous rumors began suggesting my marks were connected to tutoring irregularities before any official review. I believe the school should separate two things: a student's verified academic work and the private support notes written about them by another student. Elise stood frozen. This is not about whether tutoring matters, I said. It does. Good tutors help.
But help is not ownership.
A person who helps you study does not get to write your independence out of the record. The chapel went quiet at that. Too quiet. My voice shook, but I did not stop. I am grateful for every real lesson I received. But I reject any note that says my success is only possible because someone else supervised me into it. And I think every student who has been described in those records should be allowed to see what was written about them. That was when the room changed. Before, it had been watching a fight between Mara and Elise. Now, every student wondered what note existed beside their own name. Elise understood the shift immediately. She moved toward the aisle. You're making it sound sinister, she said, voice breaking beautifully. You know how much I cared about you. You know I stayed late, made your schedules, helped you catch up when your father was sick. How can you stand there and act like I used to? A few students softened. Of course they did. She had helped them too.
She had helped me.
That was the hardest part to explain without sounding ungrateful. You did help me, I said. And then you documented me as dependent on that help. Her mouth opened.
Closed.
I turned toward the screen. Show the note from yesterday. Principal Varick hesitated for half a second, then nodded to the AV teacher. The slide changed. Review. Possible material access conflict. Recommend review before founder's medal confirmation to avoid perception of unfair advantage. Attached by East Caro. The chapel erupted in whispers. Elise's face went white. That was taken out of context. Mrs. Vale stood from the staff row. It is the full note. Elise's eyes flashed. You shouldn't even have access to that. Not I didn't write it. Not I meant something else. You shouldn't have access. The sentence landed harder than she expected. Daniel Cho, sitting 3 rows back, stood suddenly. Are there notes about all of us? Principal Varick said, students will be able to request review of their support records. Priya stood too. Before awards are finalized? Yes. The chapel noise grew. Elise looked around as the room she had organized for years began asking for itself back. Then Elise made the mistake that ended her. She tried to confess only the noble part. "Fine," she said, voice cracking. "Yes, I wrote notes. I wrote hundreds of notes because teachers don't see what I see. They don't know who collapses before exams, who lies about studying, who needs pressure, who needs to be protected from themselves. I carried this grade. I made people better." Her words echoed through the chapel. Some students stared at her with hurt, others with dawning anger. She pointed toward me, tears finally falling. "Mara was failing when I found her." That was not true, but it was close enough to the story she needed. She had potential, but no discipline. I gave her structure. I gave her methods. I gave her everything, and now she wants to stand here like she rose alone. My mother stood at the back. She did not shout. She did not need to. "My daughter rose while grieving," she said, voice carrying through the chapel with terrifying clarity. "If you helped, thank you. But do not confuse lending a ladder with owning the roof." The whole room turned. Elise stared at my mother like she had forgotten parents outside committees could speak. Principal Varick's face tightened, either with discomfort or respect. I could not tell. I looked back at Elise. "You didn't give me everything," I said. "You gave me tools. Then you tried to charge me my name for using them better than you expected." The silence after that was different. It was not shocked. It was deciding. The assembly did not end with screaming or security, which disappointed half the school and saved the rest of us. Principal Varick paused the medal confirmation and announced an immediate audit of the peer tutoring system. Elise was asked to step down from the microphone. She did, but not before looking at me with an expression I had never seen from her before. Not anger, not sorrow, but loss. Real loss. She had lost the room, and because she had built herself inside that room, she did not know where to stand. Students filed out in restless waves, already checking group chats, already wondering what had been written about them. Daniel found me near the side aisle. "Mara," he said, pale. "If there's a note about me, and it says my improvement was because of Elise's private tutoring, but I paid her for extra sessions outside school, is that bad?" My head snapped up. "Paid her?" He looked confused. "A bunch of us did. She said official tutoring slots were full, but she could help privately." There it was. Another door behind the first. Elise had not only controlled school support notes. She had built a private tutoring business from the same students whose academic narratives she shaped. Help, pressure, dependency, payment, recommendations. A whole ecosystem with Elise in the center. "Tell Principal Varick," I said. Daniel swallowed. "Will I get in trouble?" "Maybe," I said honestly. "But less trouble than if she tells the story first." He nodded and hurried away. I watched him go, feeling the floor tilt again. The report card had been only the beginning. By lunchtime, the audit had grown teeth. Students came forward in clusters. Some had paid Elise for private exam coaching while she controlled their school tutoring notes. Some had been told they were not ready for advanced classes unless they completed her study program. Some had glowing notes after praising her publicly and vague concern flags after they stopped attending sessions. Leah Martin discovered a note saying she lacked resilience after missing 2 tutoring sessions for medical appointments. Priya found one saying her leadership potential depended on emotional regulation, written the same week she challenged Elise over debate club funding. Daniel's record mentioned mentor-assisted academic recovery, without disclosing private payments to Elise. Mine was the worst because I had become a threat. Once my marks surpassed hers, her notes shifted from supportive to cautionary. The pattern was so clear it almost felt stupid. Evil rarely looks stupid from inside the damage, but afterward, when the pieces are placed together, you wonder how anyone missed the shape. The answer is simple. Everyone benefited from not looking. Teachers liked Elise because she reduced their workload. Parents liked her because she produced marks. Students liked her because she offered rescue. Elise liked all of that because rescue gave her access to the steering wheel. Elise was suspended from academic captain duties by the end of the day. Not expelled. Schools like St. Aurelia prefer words that leave room for donors to breathe. Pending review, leadership pause, process concern. But her badge was removed from the website. Her tutoring program was frozen. The founder's medal confirmation was postponed for a week while all nominee records were audited. Anonymous accounts stopped posting after IT traced one to a device logged into Elise's school account, though she claimed someone else must have used it. Maybe they had. Maybe not. By then, it barely mattered. The notes mattered more. The report card stayed real. That was what I kept repeating to myself as the day blurred into meetings, statements, and questions. My report card exists. My marks exist. My name exists. Mrs. Vale kept the archive copy. My mother kept the blue folder clutched to her chest like scripture. At 4:30, after the final meeting, Elise waited for me outside the library. She looked different without the academic captain badge. Not smaller exactly, but unframed.
"Mara," she said.
I stopped because some endings deserve witnesses, and Mrs. Vale was clearly pretending to rearrange books 3 feet away. "You ruined me," Elise said. "No tears now. Just exhaustion and disbelief."
"No, irraplia."
I hid my report card. Her mouth trembled. "You made everyone think I'm a monster." I showed them the notes. "I helped people." "Yes." She flinched, maybe because she expected denial. "You did. And then you used the record of helping them as leverage." Her eyes reddened. I didn't know how else to stay first. There it was.
Small, ugly, human.
Not an excuse. Not enough. "You could have tried being second," I said. She laughed once, broken. "You say that like it doesn't feel like death." I looked at her for a long time. "It doesn't have to. But you made sure it felt like death for me." She transferred 2 weeks later, before the final disciplinary finding became public. Wealthy families are very good at turning consequences into relocation. Officially, Elise left St. Aurelia to pursue an accelerated academic pathway. Unofficially, her private tutoring payments were refunded, her notes were removed from student decision files, and the peer tutoring program was rebuilt under staff supervision with transparent records students could access. Teachers attended training on student data ethics, which made Mr. Orson look like he had aged 10 years. Mrs. Vale became the official records liaison and wore the title like a sword under cardigan. Principal Varick confirmed the founder's medal after the audit. My name was announced in assembly again, this time without whispers strong enough to drown it. I won. Not because Elise fell. Because my mark stood after every attempt to make them kneel. When I accepted the medal, I thought I would feel triumphant. Instead, I felt calm. That surprised me. In my first life, I imagined revenge as thunder. In the second, justice felt more like a document finally filed in the right place. My mother framed the report card, not the medal certificate. "This is the one they tried to erase," she said, pressing the glass into the frame with both thumbs. "This is the one we keep visible." She hung it above our kitchen table, where the morning light hit the Academy seal and made it glow. For weeks, every time I ate breakfast, I looked at those marks and waited for them to vanish. Trauma is stubborn like that. It keeps checking locked doors after the fire is out. But the report card stayed. So did the library scan. So did the signed copies. So did the memory of Elise begging outside the chapel. Not because she was sorry, but because she knew public truth would do what private truth never could. It would make other students ask for their own records. That was the part she feared most. Not me speaking. Everyone reading. Once the notes opened, her power ended. Secrets are only heavy when carried by one person. Years later, when people asked why I became obsessed with documentation, I gave them the short answer. A school once tried to erase my report card. The longer answer is that a girl who helped me study also tried to write herself into every achievement I earned afterward. Both truths mattered. I refused to pretend Elise was always cruel, because that would make the lesson too easy. She taught me methods I still use. She stayed late when I was drowning. She noticed my potential before teachers did. And then, when my potential grew beyond her comfort, she tried to rename it as dependence. That is the danger of help without humility. It starts as a hand under your elbow and becomes a signature across your spine. I still tutor younger students sometimes, but every session ends the same way. I tell them, These notes belong to you. These marks will be yours. If you outgrow me, good. The first time one of them beat my score on a practice paper, she apologized. I nearly cried. Never apologize for proof that the teaching worked, I told her. I wish someone had said that to Elise before she needed everyone beneath her to feel tall. On the last day of school, I went back to the chapel alone. The assembly seats were empty, the microphones switched off, sunlight falling through the stained glass windows in red and gold. I stood at the front where I had held up my report card and listened to the quiet. In another life, this room applauded Elise, while I sat with my future bleeding under my blazer. In this one, the same room heard me say help is not ownership. Maybe that was the real medal. Not the certificate, not the ranking, not even the audit. The real medal was the sound of my own voice returning to me in a room that once swallowed it. I opened my notebook and wrote one final line beneath the copy of my assembly speech. Hide what must be protected until truth has witnesses. Then I closed the notebook, slipped the report card copy inside the front cover, and walked out through the chapel doors into the courtyard, where students were laughing, arguing, comparing marks, making plans. Nobody turned when I passed. Nobody whispered. Nobody needed to. My name was already where it belonged. On the report, on the medal list, on my own future, written clearly enough that no tutor, no system, no smiling girl with a gold badge could erase it again.